Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, tonight we had planned to have a special guest with us. We were supposed to have Miss Alicia Garcia with Boomstick Babe. However, she contacted me earlier today, was unable to make it due to the weather. She was having some internet issues and utility issues where she was, and so therefore she was going to be unable to stream in with us tonight. We were going to do this remote stream, couldn't quite do that. Sorry about that. We will be rescheduling her possibly later this week or possibly later on in the month after SHOT Show and after some other stuff. I had hoped to bring her in. Really, really interesting. Again, not only is she a very active instructor and very proficient shooter herself, she's also, very active as far as a 2A activist, as far as pushing laws, as far as trying to get laws repealed. She's actually the plaintiff of record in a current suit against the governor of Colorado and their waiting period stuff. So definitely somebody that wanted to amplify and wanted to check her out and chat with her and hear it. And unfortunately, unable to do so tonight, but she will be back at some point. Just watch it, and I'll put it out when we get her coming in. Beyond that, I had sort of short notice on the show, had planned to be talking to her for an hour or two, so tried to put together a couple of quick things. One of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about the Palmetto State Armory, The Rock. I had mentioned before that I had come across one of these at a very good price at PSA. They run specials on them all the time. Different deals as far as threaded barrels, non-threaded barrels, different slide cuts. They've got a host of different custom slide designs. You can get threaded, non-threaded barrels, etc. all the way down the line. You can get, if you want to, different colors. They're really doing a lot with it. Much like the Dagger. They're doing a lot of really interesting stuff with it. But I was sort of impressed by this one. I had a student bring one to class, fired it a couple times, and I really liked it. So leave it to me to have to run out to PSA and pick me up a rock of my own. Now, I got it, and the interesting thing is I noticed that the grip is slightly narrower than, say, the Dagger or some of the other full-frame guns, and slightly longer. You don't really notice it, but real good fit in the hand, so was kind of happy with that. And I was going to take it out to the range and see how it did. Now, interesting to note about the Rock, if you see it's a 5.7 millimeter. Now, when you hear 5.7, that is not a normal handgun caliber we deal with. I mean, in long guns, we've got our 5.56, and if you look at a 5.7, it's actually very similar in shape and design to what a 5.56 would look like. It's a 40 grain projectile. Now, I haven't done all the ballistics on this yet, going to work on that in the spring, but the concept behind this is very simple. The 40 grain projectile being so much lighter than the standard, say, 9mm that comes in at about 115 to 147 grains, this one gets going a heck of a lot faster out of the barrel. You're looking at velocities that are in the 2,000 FPS plus range. 2,000, 2,500 is very potential with this pistol. Now, for a pistol, that is lightning fast. The kinematics of it, again, we're going to look down the line, we're going to see how it works, but basically, you're looking at almost more the behavior characteristics and the trajectory, long distance characteristics of a 5.56 that has like a 62 grain out of a rifle barrel, where you're looking at a 40 grain out of a 4 to 5 inch pistol barrel. So definitely very, very fast moving projectile, much lighter weight, but ballistic wise should be pretty impressive. So again, looking at that, that's kind of where we're at with that, with the 5.7. It's interesting, this is the only 5.7 pistol I own. It's the only one I've gotten so far. There's about 4 or 5 different companies that make them. I know Smith has one out, Ruger has one, and FN has one. Now, the history of the 5.7 cartridge, it was actually designed by FN or Fabrique as a NATO replacement to the 9mm. Don't know, again. We're seeing a lot of different reports on it. Still want to see how it does long term, but it was interesting enough and a nice enough pistol that I decided, hey, it's on sale and it's right up the road at my friends at Palmetto, so I went ahead and grabbed one. Now the Rock is a full-size striker fire pistol. You can get it with or without the threaded barrel. If you get it with a threaded barrel, you're looking at about 5.2 inches in length. Without the threaded barrel, 4.7. I got it mine with the threaded barrel. However, that being said, Palmetto offers lots of different changes for barrels colored, golden, rainbow color, chameleon, whatever you name, chromed. I was able to swap out the barrel, and so I picked up on the side a non-threaded barrel. I'm not putting anything on it right now as far as a suppressor, a flash hider, so don't really think I need the threaded barrel, and made it a little bit shorter. The weight of the gun, about 25 ounces empty, about 31 ounces loaded. And again, I figure why would we get a weight empty, because not like we carry it around empty, but it's about 31 ounces fully loaded. Now, when we look at that or we compare that to other firearms, you figure the average full frame gun, you can be looking at, higher weight ratios, different things. My full frame Smith & Wesson Model 915, it's coming in at about 34 grams loaded, or 34 ounces, loaded. My Shield fully loaded is 24. Smith & Wesson EZ, you're talking about 26.1 fully loaded. The Dagger, about 29 ounces fully loaded. So, okay, a little bit different there as far as the weight goes. Now, the interesting thing is, when you look at that weight, to go from 25 ounces up to 31 ounces loaded, it's a pretty big jump there. Part of that's because, it has 23 round magazine capacity. If you visualize a typical AR-15 mag, where the rounds are staggered in, it's a double stack staggered mag, and the rounds load into it very similarly to the way an AR does, pretty much straight in. Instead of down and in and sliding them back, they snap into place very similarly. Now, the one I got came optics cut slide with 2 mounting plates. I've got those off on the side. Personally, I don't have an optic on it right now. I haven't invested in an optic for this one, again, until I really know if I'm going to have it as an EDC or what I'm going to do with it. Right now, I've got it. I wanted to try it out and see what I thought. It comes with a nylon PSA case, of course. Very nice case, definitely a high quality case. Adjustable, everything's Velcroed in place in it. Good zipper on it. You can change it around to configure it how you want. Came with the manual, of course, chamber flag, and a little safety locking cable because I somehow needed another one of those. I actually give those away to people in class. If they get a used gun, they need one, they don't have one, I'll go ahead and I'll, give them one out because, where I am on safety on that stuff. Now, the one downside I do have on this is when it came with a high front sight, a high post front sight, and it was designed, that wasn't supposed to be like that, but okay. There's your post front sight there, and the other side is, the rear sights. The sight's designed to be high enough that you can co-witness it. Trying to figure out why that slide came out upside down, because it shouldn't have, but alrighty. But I was not really fond of the sight. The gun fired great, reliable, ran great, but I was having a little trouble picking up the sight easily with it being, kind of blacked out. Against the red background, you can see it pretty well. Against the black background or a dark background, like a B-27 target, not really. So I decided I was going to do a little something with the sights. So I did some work on the sights, and I swapped it out with a set of XS sights, 3-dot tritium sight set. Cost me $69. I installed them myself. They're basically Glock compatible guns. This, as well as the Dagger Compact, are all Glock compatible sights. And so swapping them out, very, very simple. That was one thing I really do love about these, even though it's PSA, which I'm not going to call them off-brand, but they're not, Glock or Smith or Ruger or Taurus. Sometimes you get something that's not one of the top two or three brands. You can't find any accessories for it. Well, the way PSA has made this one, made the Dagger Compact, you want to swap something out? Just go get the Glock parts. The sights are Glock sights. The Dagger Compact uses Glock mags. So it was very easy to get things, good availability of secondhand parts. As you can see, with the Tritium 3-dot set, much easier to pick up the sights quickly on the range. So that was definitely a big win for me on that. And again, I'm not complaining the way these sights were. They're designed, again, to be used with an optic. They're designed to co-witness with the main red dot sight. They're not designed to be used as a primary sight. But until I decide what optic, or if I'm going to do an optic, or what I want to do with it, I wanted to just change out the sights. And again, took me an hour to do, and $69 for a Tritium night sight set. So worked really nicely. Love the new sights on it. Put those on, like I said, I could have gotten it done at the shop for about 125 parts included. I did it for $69, bought the parts and did it myself. It's not that hard to do, especially the front sight. The back sight took a little bit of effort on my part, but when I say effort, it took time, but nothing, significant. The front sight, if you've got a standard Glock sight tool, just pop one out, pop the other one in, slip a little Loctite on it when you put it in, life's good, you're done. So that one was maybe a 30-minute job total. The back sight was probably about an hour 15 minutes total. Not bad at all. And again, if you like working on your stuff, you like working on your pistols, this isn't a big stretch to get anyone to do this. Okay, so overall, how's it shoot? Well, folks, I told you a while back that I had been turned on to the PSA Dagger Compact. Actually turned on by Alicia, who was supposed to be here tonight. She was showing us the fact that they were having a lot of discounts on stuff and at PSA, and she showed a special on that one, and I liked the idea, so I went out and I tried it. That Dagger Compact fired great. It's a 9mm, fired great, handled great, very smooth take up on the trigger, good solid wall, brakes crisp and clean, very light reset, it's quick reset. Very pleased with it. As far as, accuracy, it's a tack driver. 15 yards, I'm just tearing the center out of a target. So very happy with the accuracy and the function of the Dagger, or the Dagger Compact, excuse me, which, by the way, did come with 3-dot standard white night sights. This one, honestly, since it's from the PSA stable, I'm sure a lot of the components are similar. The design is similar. The same people sketched it out, made it as they did the Dagger Glock clone. This one, again, same story. Trigger, very, smooth take up, no staging at all. Hits the wall, crisp, clean break, fires great. Accuracy has been good. I haven't had a chance to take it out with the new sights on it yet. I'll probably be doing that this week. Overall, folks, if you're looking for something in the 5.7x28, compared to the prices and the cost of some of these other things, this gun is going to beat them all, especially value for the price. Quality of it, I've not noticed any quality issues, and I've been inside both of them a couple times. They run great, not having any problems with them, no stoppages, no failure to feed, no issues. And I've got probably, I'd say 400 rounds through this. I will tell you, if you're going down this route, the 5.7x28 ammo may be a little bit hard to come by at this point. More and more manufacturers are starting to add it. Until they do, may have a little trouble coming up with it. Beyond that, it is a little bit pricey. It's about 50 cents a round most of the time for the ammunition to play with it. That's why I haven't really done much more than about 500 rounds. Now, the Dagger Compact. Again, all the same great things as far as the trigger, the mechanics of it, the reliability of it, no failures to feed, well over 1,000 rounds. And I've used everything in it from, you know, what I'd call cheap range ammo, like the Tull Wolf kind of family of friends, all the way on up to CCI Blazer range ammo, and actually some Federal HST that I had laying around, some other jacketed hollow point I had laying around. Again, never a failure to feed, eats it all wonderfully, feeds it all out wonderfully. Accuracy, great. Honestly, guys, maybe I'm a little partial. Now, I don't get paid by Palmetto or PSA. I will say this, these two pistols, the Dagger Compact, the Dagger, this one, and even their 45 caliber Admiral, which although it is technically Rock Island Armory, but their 45 caliber Admiral, again, great guns for what you're paying. You can't really beat it. The Admiral price points coming in around $500 for the high grade one with the ambi safeties and all the fancy cutouts on it. Both the Dagger and this one have the pick rail on the bottom of the front slide, so you can go ahead and hook up a light there, or hook up whatever you want, a laser light or an O light, something like that, or a stream light. Both of them, again, lightly textured finish, very comfortable, very nice to shoot. I can shoot them all day, not regretting either of the purchases at all. Quite frankly, the only question is which one I kind of like more as far as a carry gun. The Dagger Compact, I'm looking at 15 plus 1 capability. This one I'm looking at 23 plus 1, which again, for a standard magazine gun, that's a little bit out there. On the other side of the coin, who's to say it's not, the wave of the future, the 5.7 by 28. 9mm was new at one time too. So we'll see how it works. Again, I like them. They're both, you won't go wrong with either one of them. Just know that, again, the 5.7 is a little bit pricier to feed it. As far as the 5.7, the mags are kind of proprietary. You can't just use many over-the-counter or off-market mags. You got to get them through PSA. But I got mine through PSA, extra mags. It came with two. My extra mag was $25. So $25 for a 23 round mag, and I think the barrel change out was about $100. So definitely not a big problem, not a big expense on this. Definitely good quality firearms at a very, very reasonable price. I think PSA did it right on this one. Did it very right, quite frankly. Now, let's get into something a little bit more interesting. If you look at the thumbnail for tonight, I had put out there that we're going to get into gun buybacks. Now, gun buybacks is like a sort of big overall umbrella term. We're going to talk about buybacks as a whole. We're going to get into some of the issues surrounding them. Are they good? Are they bad? Do they help? Do we care? Well, yeah, we kind of care, and I'll show you why. Even though most of the people watching this are going to be kind of on the 2A side, and we're going to be kind of, pro-gun, and we're not looking to get rid of any of our guns and trade them in for gift cards or whatever else. However, it's kind of a public policy discussion we need to have in a way, and the reason I say that is the money that is being put into some of these buyback efforts, a little bit crazy sometimes when you look at it. Give you an idea, back in 2000, HUD provided over $15 million to support gun buybacks over several years. In August of 2022, Houston spent over $100,000 in gun buybacks. In fall of 2023, Harris County, Texas, went through $78,000 in gun buyback money. And when you look at some of these numbers as far as what they're paying and what it's costing, some of it is local money, some of it's Fed money, but at the bottom line, it's taxpayer money. It came from somewhere. I mean, even if the federal government rained the money down on your town or your city or your county or your state, municipality, whatever, for their gun buyback, it's just your tax dollars coming back to you. Remember, the federal government doesn't make anything. They just tax us and then do as they see fit with it. So if they take in $200,000 in taxes and give $100,000 of it back for gun buyback money, I guess that community should feel special. But okay, we won't get into taxation right now because we'll get in real deep with that. But is gun buybacks, or are gun buybacks, I guess I should say, pardon my English, it's, get my teeth out of my mouth here. Are gun buybacks a good use of our tax money? Since we're using our taxpayer money, is it productive? Is it not productive? Is it a good thing? Is it helping anything? What was the goal to start off with it? And again, let's look at some of the different issues that have happened with gun buybacks. And we can't go through all of them because every one of them is a little bit different. Sometimes it's run by a local community or activist group. Sometimes it's run by law enforcement or a government entity. Sometimes it's sort of a collaboration between two or three of them. The policies vary widely depending on what community or what organization or group is running it, setting it up. Again, some set up by law enforcement, some set up independently, some as a collab. Now, some of these offer a set amount. Every firearm you bring us, we'll give you a $50, $100 gift card. Others, depends on what kind of firearm it is. It may be, $50 for a handgun, $100 for a assault rifle, whatever the hell that is. We don't know. They seem to, though. They keep using that term, but I don't think it means what they think it means. Anyway. Going a little bit further with the whole thing, some of them require that the guns be working. Some of them, if it's a ghost gun or an unserialized gun, there's a different price or menu price for that. We'll see how it all works out. Now, as much as the prices or the bonuses or what you get, whether it's cash or a gift card or a Visa gift card or what, as much as they vary, the policies vary. Some of them, they want to know who's turning them in. Some of them, no names, no strings attached, just bring them and give them to us. Some of them, again, they look them over before they dispose of them. Some of them, they just throw them in a bin and send them off to be disposed of. And that's where it gets kind of interesting. Some of them that are known to be like what they call no strings attached, where you basically just pull up, open the trunk of your vehicle, they come out, count up how many guns are in there, take them all from you, and give you a bunch of money for them. Well, then they throw them in a dumpster and never look at the serial numbers or never log them or never do anything. Well, guess what? That is pretty much one of the best ways for a criminal to sell stolen guns. He couldn't go to a pawn shop and pawn it for cash or sell it for cash at a gun shop, no strings attached with no name attached. But the government is actually at that point giving him a wonderful way to dispose of all the guns he has, any stolen guns he has. Remember, they don't want to be caught with a stolen gun, so what do? Well, they wait to find one that's no strings attached, and then the government buys all the stolen property from them and destroys it, and that way the criminal has just fenced their stolen merchandise. Thank you, Big Daddy Government. Now, I can't say they're all like that, and they're not all like that, but that is a very realistic possibility. Beyond that, what are some of the other things that we've seen happening? Well, imagine that I had my old grandpa's pistol here. I don't know what it is. I don't know nothing about no guns, but I got old grandpa's pistol that's been handed down and down and down from Big Pa all the way on. Well, guess what? I decide I don't want it in the house. So I decide I'm going to go get rid of it. I turn it in as one of these gun buybacks, and I get a $50 gift card, and I walk away thinking I did great. And if they don't pay attention and there's no one looking at them and they're just throwing them all in a bin to be sent out to be melted down because they're big bad guns, could that have been a World War II relic? Could that have been a museum piece that should go somewhere? Could that have been something that was taken off a German officer? Yes, it's very possible. But no one's looking at them. If it was a long gun, could it have been a Civil War era 1812 rifle? Yeah, it could have been, but who cares? We're melting down museum pieces. A lot of them, when they do these gun buybacks, There is no one there with any firearm or historical knowledge sort of looking at these things saying, yeah, that's all junk, you can burn it and melt it all. That one we need to research. Oh, wow, look, this one's worth X grand because it's, a museum piece. And the person turning it in may not know. They may have stolen it from a rack above someone's fireplace. It may be a family heirloom that was taken in a robbery, but if they're not looking at serial numbers or anything, it doesn't matter. Your family heirloom was traded for a $50, $100, or whatever gift card, or $200. Who knows? That's kind of sketchy, kind of, problematic to me. Now, they did a study in Philadelphia, and they looked over a 2-year period from 2019 to 2021 over 30 different gun buyback events. Now, these 30 different gun buyback events recovered just over 100 guns. And they said, okay, 100 guns at 30 events. But the thing is, when you look back at how much it cost to run these 30 events, was over $100,000. Now, it wasn't $1,000 per each gun that was coming in, but to set them up, to run them, to have a place to do it, the personnel there, the people on duty, whatever, the advertising, whatever it took, they spent over $100,000 and were able to get 100 guns off the street. That's $1,000 per gun. Now, they weren't giving out $1,000 per gun by any stretch, but it was costing $1,000 per gun with all the overhead, administrative, and disposal costs. Gee, is that a very good use of funds, do you think? Remember, it's your tax dollars that are doing it. I'm just pointing it out. If we're spending money on tax dollars to say, hey, let's get these bad guns off the streets, if it costs $100,000 to get 100 guns off the street, and we don't know what kind of shape they were in, that might not be a very efficient use of tax money. But I guess if it just saves one life, it's not their money. They're spending tax money like crazy. Now, interestingly also, on these just over 100 guns that were recovered, they did test the ballistics on all of the guns that were recovered. No, it was no strings attached. They didn't know the name of who turned it in, whether it was John Smith, Mary Johnson, whoever. But they tested the ballistics on them. And they looked at the ballistics on these 100 guns, and none of them were connected to any crime on record in the area. None of them, again, I say none of them, y'all got that none of them part, were connected to any crime in the area. So they got 100 guns off the streets, but they weren't crime guns. They weren't the guns that were used to shoot up the liquor store last night. They weren't the guns that had, a dead police officer attached to it or something. No. It was all guns that had been in sheds, in barns, in closets, locked up. They weren't doing the crime. They were not the violent guns. Now, they did get 100 guns off the streets. And sometimes they say, okay, older people who don't want it around anymore, people who have gotten nervous. Sometimes you get widows turning in their husband's old whatever it is. Unfortunately, the problem is, again, some of these could be relics, could be museum pieces. Some of these could be, quite valuable. But again, we melt them down for $50 or $100 or whatever. Definitely an issue there. Now, again, going further, there's been some of these that have gotten scammed and gotten scammed really badly. There was one that was in August 2022 in Utica, New York. They had a big deal up there, and they were doing $350 for ghost guns. If you bring in a ghost gun, $350, no strings attached. Okay? Well, somebody went ahead and printed 60 ghost guns. Printed 60 handguns. 60 homemade printed handguns, and went up there and turned them in at $350 a piece. Cleaned out close to $27,000 with one box of homemade printed guns. Now, New York has since changed the rules on their gun buybacks, but now this individual, hey, God bless him, more power to you. You took the system, you worked the system, But all of a sudden, if they say, oh, we're going to pay $350 for every ghost gun, what are you doing? People go home and make ghost guns and say, yeah, how many of them you want to buy? $27,000 worth. Yeah, their gun buyback ran out of money in the first few hours. And then the people who actually had guns they wanted to sell couldn't sell them. But someone sold a bunch of junk plastic ghost guns they made. Well played, sir. Got to give it to you. Beyond that, we have a couple of other issues that come up. Depending on the state laws, some of these programs may tippy-toe, may run into some state law issues. For example, we'll look at New Mexico. They've got quite a mess going on right now because the group New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence had a gun buyback planned in cooperation with local law enforcement. Well, local law enforcement kind of backed out. Whether they backed out because they were busy, short-handed, didn't have time, weren't interested, I don't know. But, so this group, New Mexicans for Preventing Gun Violence, anti-gun group, decided that they should go out and just do this gun buyback themselves. Because, after all, it was going to get guns off the street, and the end justifies the means. There's a little problem, though. In New Mexico, you have to do a firearm transfer. It's illegal to do basically person-to-person sales. In South Carolina, I can sell person-to-person to my neighbors, to my friends, whatever, as long as I don't know them to be a prohibited possessor. Now, in New Mexico, if I lived there and wanted to sell to one of my neighbors, we would have to go to a local dealership, and they'd have to go through a FFL 4473 form with that FFL. Okay. Well, these individuals, now this doesn't include if you're law enforcement. You can surrender a firearm, return a firearm, transfer a firearm to law enforcement or between law enforcement agencies, but you cannot do it private citizen to private citizen. These individuals, private citizens, activist group, went out and bought back a bunch of these guns from private citizens. Each one of them is basically considered an illegal firearms transfer under New Mexico state law. So, an anti-gun group pushed to criminalize person-to-person transactions requiring you to go through an FFL. They got the law passed that they wanted, which means John can't transfer a gun to Mary. They've got to go through a dealer, and you can only transfer to an FFL or to a sworn law enforcement officer. And then they went out and ignored the law and transferred or purchased privately with gift cards to the citizens these guns. Theoretically, either half of this transaction, the person giving them the gun or the person receiving the firearm and giving them the gift card, either one of them would be chargeable. So if, let's say, I lived in New Mexico and they came and I turned in 3 guns, I've just illegally sold 3 guns and I can go to jail for it. But they've also illegally purchased 3 guns and can go to jail for it. Now, there's a lot of people questioning this, and the group says, oh, but we're an anti-gun group, so the laws don't apply to us. The question's going to be if New Mexico, we know how they love their anti-gun groups, and we know how Michelle Lujan Grisham loves to rewrite the law for anti-gun groups and suspend the Constitution for firearms owners. But this is a perfect example of a gun buyback gone horribly wrong. Several people committed crimes in dealing guns to these private citizens. You're not allowed to do that in New Mexico, based on a crazy gun law that these people pushed for. Yeah, remember when I said we have more gun laws than we have car laws sometimes, and half of them don't make sense? So you cannot surrender a gun for it to be destroyed to a private citizen in New Mexico. It's got to go through a dealer or through law enforcement. They didn't do that, and so that's kind of a mess. Local law enforcement is looking into it. I don't know what's going to happen, but it could be problematic. So when we look at all these things, that was it's an outlier, it's an oops. But again, are we losing antiques and relics and historically significant things, getting them melted? How about crime guns? Have we got crime guns getting ditched? Because you know what? I guess if, we held up a bank last night or last month and we shot a couple of people, we wouldn't want to be hanging onto this gun. So if there's a gun buyback where I can turn it in, no strings attached, and they'll melt it down and destroy the evidence for me, helps out the world a little bit. And after all, they'll never catch me with that stolen gun. And if they're not looking at the serial numbers, it probably is a stolen gun. Not to mention, we talked about, the other night in the incident report about kids stealing guns out of cars in Florida. Well, guess what? If they steal a bunch of guns, they save them all up. If they have a gun buyback in the neighborhood, they can go out there and dispose of all this stolen property. They couldn't take it anywhere else. But here, the government will pay them for it. Now, I'm not saying that all gun buybacks are bad. I'm wanting us to look at them with our eyes wide open. I think gun buybacks can be good. I think there is a potential for something good. If somebody has a firearm that they do not want, they're not comfortable with it in their house, it was a father's, it was a son's, it was a child, somebody left it, that whatever the case may be, I'm all for them turning it over properly to law enforcement, have it taken care of, whatever. Turn it over to a gun shop, to a licensed dealer, fine, whatever. I think activist groups trying to do this on their own is about crazy. But I'm hoping that when law enforcement or someone does see these, they at least look and see if these are museum or relic pieces or family heirlooms. I mean, imagine if you had a firearm that your great-grandfather or your grandfather had, used in, the service for years, but you didn't know what it was and you had no idea, and maybe it was given to him by General Patton or MacArthur. There's some great history behind it, and it's getting not even looked at, just melted down, because it's a gun. It's a bad thing. This would be kind of like if they were doing, I always use cars as my analogy. If we were doing cash for clunkers program like they tried to do at one point, and somebody was turning in a 57 Chevy, and no one looked at it to see what it was, just rolled it out to the crusher and let it happen. Yeah. Well, hey, maybe they're stolen cars we're turning in. Who knows? We're not going to look at the VIN number. We'll just give you cash for it and let you go. Isn't that what gets these catalytic converter places in trouble? Just quick cash for catalytics? Yeah. Well, they're doing quick cash for guns, no strings attached. I've got questions there. I'd love to see it work, but I also think it can be abused, and the bad guys can use it to their advantage. Now, the next question comes in, and this was a really interesting piece I read on it, and their question, they were coming from the standpoint of, number one, of the 100 plus that came in, they didn't manage to get anything that was a crime gun. 34 buyback events, no crime guns, okay? But it was a massive drain on city resources, etc., etc., etc. They brought the question up. They said, okay, if you were a carpenter and you worked on houses, you framed houses all day, would you, voluntarily sell your hammer for a cheap gift card? No, probably not. If you're a mechanic and you work on engines all day, would you sell me your wrenches for, a $50 gift card? Probably not. How about if you're a pilot? Your nice Bose headset, your, fancy aviator sunglasses, would you part with those for a $50 gift card? No. If you were a baker, would you part with your mixer and your cake decorating stuff for a $50 gift card? No. Why? If you're a nurse or a doctor, your stethoscope, $50 gift card, any good? Probably not. All these are your tools of the trade. These tools are valuable to you. You use these tools every day in your business. I wouldn't, as a paramedic, trade my stethoscope. Wouldn't, sit there and trade my, EMS work boots. I'm sure there's not any firefighter out here trade his helmet for a $50 gift card. Probably, protect his head too much. Carpenters wouldn't trade their hammer. Mechanics wouldn't trade their wrenches or their socket sets or anything. $50 gift card. The criminals who use guns for bad purposes. The bad guys who carry guns because they carry money, they carry drugs, they rob people, they hold up liquor stores, they do drive-bys, they are the problem in society, the problems of society. They are not going to give up their guns for $50 any more than that doctor is going to hand over his $300 stethoscope for $50 gift card. We're not going to get the guns out of criminals' hands. We may get the unused relics out of the barn, out of the back shed, whatever's in the attic or the garage. We may get rid of Grandpa's old service pistol from WW2, but we are not getting criminal guns off the street. These are not the guns that are going to be showing up at a murder scene tonight. These, very, very, very rarely. So, we may be able to help with maybe some suicide issues with guns, which is good. But are we going to help with crime? Are we going to help the murder rate? Probably not. Because guess what? The people who are willing to go out and kill another human being or shoot up a movie theater, school, shopping mall, whatever, go out here and do drive-bys and strafe a middle school. No. They're not turning in their guns. They like their guns. These are their tools of the trade. For them, it's, again, would you get someone who works in the beauty parlor to sell their shears and all their, implements for a $50 gift card? No. That's their tools of the trade. That's their business. They're not going to be good with that. So, again, we've got to remember what we're doing, who we're talking to, and where we're at. So, it is what it is. I think gun buybacks may have a little bit of a positive effect as far as, again, getting some of the old ones off the street and some of the problem guns off the street, but we're not getting crime guns off the street. We showed that, out of all the guns they brought in, nothing happened. Maybe if we use some of that money for rewards for either Crime Stoppers, if we put a bounty on certain guns, tell you what, you tell the police where they can find a gun that was used in a murder, I've got no problem with giving you a fat reward card. Not a problem in the world. You tell the police where they can find a gun that's been used to shoot up a school or do a drive-by, you know what? Get the reward card. But you show up with a trunk load of 3D printed guns. Nah. I'm glad you got your 27K, but let's not do it again. Now, I will say this. Those of us in our world, the Pro 2A world, look up your local state laws. Are person-to-person transfers legal in your state? If they are, and someone is trying to do a gun buyback, hey, go down there. You might upset them a little bit, but like Brandon and Donut did, you can check out AK Guy's video. They went to a gun buyback. That's right. Brandon Herrera and Donut operator Cody went down to a gun buyback in Texas where they were doing this, and they stood out on the street and said, we pay cash for guns. They looked over what was coming in. They knew that if they get up there to where the cops are, they get $50 for them. But they got a few rifles at $100 a piece for nice rifles. The ones they didn't want, they passed on. If it's legal in your state, again, I'm not an attorney, and even if I was, I'm not your attorney, so don't go down that road with me. But if person-to-person transfers are legal in your state, why don't we all offer to be gun buybacks? As a matter of fact, if there's anyone in South Carolina who has any guns they need to get rid of, I'll be happy to take them off your hands and make sure they get a good home, nice, warm, secure resting place, and get taken out, lovingly oiled, and driven to the range once in a while for recoil therapy. Because it is what it is, folks. But that's all I've got. Hope y'all have a wonderful evening. We'll be back on on Thursday. Not sure exactly what we're going to be working on for Thursday, although This was what I had planned for Thursday. Kind of pulled it a little bit early. And Friday night, we will probably be having another live Quora drinking stream because that was definitely fun and I had some real good response on that. And also, if you want to, you can check out on Saturday night this past week. I was on Sergeant Sniper's stream over on Rumble. We had a lot of fun over there. Definitely had a lot of laughs. So, if you need something to watch, check it out over there. Thank you very much. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Peace out. Be safe. Bye.